Hey, beautiful creatives. Welcome to Life I Design, the podcast. Thanks for joining me, your host, Nicki Traikos. I'm an artist, letterer, instructor, and creative business owner. I started and built Life I Design from home while raising a family and learning how to juggle it all. This podcast is my way of pulling back the curtain and inviting you to step into my home studio so we can get candid about all things art, business, and life so I can help you create a life that you design. Ready for episode number 3? Here's where we're chatting about my biggest tip on finding your artistic style. Sound good? Let's get started. So having a consistent art style is something that a lot of beginning artists struggle with. And I use the word artist to group in people like calligraphers and letterers and painters and designers. Those are all things that I know. So if you're starting out and you're learning to paint or design or letter and want to start working on your personal style, this episode is for you. People will be able to recognize that it's your stuff. And if you already have fans and buyers, that's a good thing. You want them to look at your posts that you're posting on social media or products that you have that you're selling and say, hey, that's Nicki's art. I love her stuff. I'm going to pick up another piece. Okay. But for now, let's focus on creating your own art style as a beginning artist or letterer. I'm going to use painting as an example here because this is something that I've worked on myself the last 3 years or so. So I've got a bit of experience with this specific area. So let's say you've taken a few classes, you feel like you have your groove on and you're painting up a storm, but you feel like you haven't really developed your own style yet. And you're thinking, yes, Nicki, that's me. How do I find my style? Okay, I've got you now. When I was working on practicing with mixed media art and abstract pieces, I really wanted to create some abstract pieces that looked like graffiti-like and make them my own with some personal touches. The number one way that I do that now, are you ready for it? Is to practice and observe. Simple, right? Finding your artistic style only happens when you express your art through practice. And I mean consistent practice. It doesn't have to be, 2-3 hours a day, every day, making art or drawing your letters. What it means is sit down for 20 minutes, 3 times a week. It's better than 2 hours once a month. Maybe you can afford to put in 10 minutes, 5 times a week. That consistent effort will help you start to develop your artistic style. So what should you be doing in those times? As you're practicing, I would expect that you would sit down to create a few practice pieces and do things like make your favorite marks, use colors that make your heart happy, or paint things that speak to you. So if you like to draw straight lines and maybe turn them into a checkered pattern, do that. Do that and explore doing that with a brush pen, with a paintbrush, with just pencils or charcoal, whatever it is. Just make those marks. If they make you happy and you get into a meditative mode, a relaxed state, and it inspires you to pick up another piece of paper and pencil and do it again. Okay? For me, I noticed when I started to work in consistent practices that I would bring in bright magenta into all of my pieces, whether I was using charcoal or watercolor paint or acrylic paint. I also used white as a staple to downtone some of my pieces and lettering, and I would use it as a layer. So when I started to pull together some of my practices, whether it was in my art journal or just on loose sheets, I would start to notice the consistencies of those colors. So those were a few elements that I would find in my practice pieces, as well as my finished pieces. So as you start to practice, pay attention to what you're painting or lettering. What commonalities do you notice throughout? Are there colors that you keep using again and again? Or are there marks that you're always including in most or all of your pieces? I find I tend to do a lot of leaf motifs, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but look for those commonalities, okay? What can you notice throughout multiple pieces of your practice? So, okay, let's get back to the leaves and florals. For a while, I was adding leaves and florals very subtly to my original art pieces. So my fine art pieces that I was hanging in exhibitions, and they were done as a finishing element. They were something that I loved and that I brought into my art. Why did I bring them in? It was because it's something that I love. I'm very drawn to nature. I'm drawn to organic shapes. I'm drawn to birds. So I don't want you to, go onto Google and say, what can I include in my art? I want you to look inward and think about things that you love. Okay. So not only does this practice help you with your skills and confidence, but it helps you find your unique artistic style. Okay. Your unique style is your personality shining through. It's what you love. It's what you're drawn to. And it's how you interpret those things in your art. I hope that makes sense. So now I use painting as an example. How do we relate this to lettering and calligraphy? Okay, let's think about this. Are you always making your lettering look bouncy and flowy? Are you drawn to that style? Maybe you're not quite there yet, but are you drawn to that style? Do you love modern calligraphy that has breaks between letters and flourishes as accents? If so, practice those things over and over and over again until they become natural to you, until you notice those marks and lines are becoming consistent in your own lettering. Okay? I most often cross my T's in a very unique way and do the line over and over again, even if it means I cross the T through other letters. This is just my own personal style. No one told me, cross your T's that way so you can develop your artistic style. It's just something that I liked and I did it again and again. Okay. I also break most traditional calligraphy rules. I have to tell you, I don't care. It's something that makes my lettering modern and in my personality. It may not be something that everyone likes and appreciates, but again, it doesn't matter. That's my artistic style. Okay. The only way that I was able to develop this artistic calligraphy style of mine was consistent practice, building my muscle memory and repeating the same strokes, lines, shapes, and words over and over and over again until I loved it. And I want you to hear this like in all caps. I'll say it again. I did the same lines, marks, colors, motifs again and again and again until I loved it. Not until my friends loved it or the people on Instagram loved it, until I loved it. And then I shared my work over and over again. And people began recognizing the consistencies in my style, even if they didn't realize it. And they would comment that they knew it was my work and that they loved it. And some won't. Who cares? So let's summarize a bit here, shall we? I want you to think about your own artistic style, and I want you to start bringing in your favorite elements into your work. Okay, let's do a little brainstorm together. Through the use of colors, what are the most consistent colors that you have around you? What does your clothing look like? What does your home look like? What colors make you happier? What are you drawn to when you're out shopping? Okay, use those colors in your art practice. I want you to think of shapes. I often have a lot of square items around me. I don't know what it is. I'm starting to bring in more round things and softer. So I have maybe square wood trays, and I've accented things around my house and even around my desk with round, soft items. I'm looking at a woven little dish right now that's beautiful and round. So I want you to think about the shapes that you have of items around you. Okay? What shapes are you drawn to? Oh, there goes the puppy. I don't know if you heard that. I'm not going to edit that out because that's life. I don't think that this podcast should be perfect. Okay, so think about those shapes. What do you have around you and what kind of shapes are you drawn to? Are they very geometric? Are they circular? Are they abstract? Okay, and interpret those shapes in your work and in your practice. Let's also think about line weight. So if we think about lettering, are your line weights more light? And do they have flair? Are they flowy? Are they feminine? Or are they bold and strong? What are you drawn to? What makes you excited when you see a lettered quote and the line weight of the typography, even if it's not hand lettered? Okay, start introducing those and journal about it. Get a sketchbook and sit and brainstorm. I talked the last episode about brainstorming what you wanted to spend your time on, but let's brainstorm things that you love in strokes and in shapes and in color. Does that make sense? Okay, the last one I want you to think about is what common motifs are around you. What things are you drawn to? Again, I love abstract floral shapes and organic leaves. I love abstract lines and impressions of a landscape versus a realistic landscape. What are some motifs that you are drawn to? Okay, those are things that you should be brainstorming about. Now, let's think about developing your own artistic style in your lettering and painting and through practice, okay? Because practice is the only way that you are going to develop your personal artistic style, and it's the only way you'll discover it. So, practicing more often for less amount of time is better than cramming in a long session, but not picking up your art supplies again for another month or even a week, okay? I'd rather you practice 5 to 10 minutes a day than 2 hours once a month. And if you can, 20 minutes, I feel like is a good amount of time for you to get warmed up and fall into your practice. And you'll be surprised if you do allow that time where you can really get involved in what you're practicing, you'll actually find that you'll spend more than 20 minutes on your practice, okay? So I also want you to think about working through trial and error. You may not like everything that you do. You may not like every mark that you put down on your canvas or on your paper. Try different colors, try different mediums, tools, motifs, and be okay when you make art or you letter a piece that you don't like. I, to this day, do that all the time. I can't even tell you. I just did a major purge. I tore up so many watercolor pieces, and that's okay because all of that practice helped me decide what I wanted to do more of. And it helped me break out of my box and build that muscle memory. So learn from the experiences that you don't like as well. That's often where most of the growth happens. Then I want you to lay out all of your work. Lay it all out on the ground. Look for elements that speak to you, that make you feel good. Bring pieces together, even if you have to start cutting up pieces. So if you're working on paper, cut up elements that you love. Tear them up a little bit and kind of move them around. Really have fun with this part, okay? Finding and looking for your artistic style and voice, it's a journey and it's a practice. It won't happen overnight and it won't happen by wishing and dreaming, okay? Take time to develop your skills, build that experience in that body of work and enjoy the process. Play around with it, make it fun, and don't put pressure on yourself. I think that's one of my biggest tips here too. The process of creating, of painting, of lettering is most often the hardest part of creating, but also brings so many positive benefits. It's meditative, just falling into a practice that makes you happy and connected to what inspires joy. It promotes confidence. It opens you up to other experiences. It leaves you with pieces of work that you and your hands brought to life. So when you look back 6 months from now or a year from now, you'll soon forget all of your fears and struggles and even what creating was like before you developed your artistic style or before you put in all that time to practice. And I can speak about this for hours and hours. The process is one that really unfolds if you allow it to. It can fill you up and it can take you on a personal creative journey that is like no other. So when you can be playful and really enjoy the process of finding your artistic style, it will come together and it will develop so beautifully that you'll want to spend more time on your art. So I hope this episode inspires you to take out your art supplies, your lettering tools, and create a space that you enjoy working in, where you can steal away moments in the day and practice and develop your artistic style. Let me know if this information was helpful. You can even send me an email, comment in the podcast space where you listen to podcasts, and tell me about your takeaways. I want to hear them. And if you're looking for art and lettering classes, I invite you to visit Life I Design online, where you can find a number of my classes to help you grow your artistic side and inspire more creativity in your life. I actually have a new live workshop coming up on September 28th, where I pull back the curtain and teach you all about greeting cards and how to make them, design them, and maybe even sell them. That's perfect as we prepare for the upcoming holiday season. Yes, Christmas is around the corner, even though it's only September. So you can learn all about that greeting card class at lifeidesignonline.com. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode and spending time with me here on the podcast. Please share it with your creative friends and let's help each other grow, be inspired, and be creative. Until next time, I wish you all the best with finding your artistic style. See you in the next episode.